All right, good morning, everyone. As chairman of the commission, I call this meeting of the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission to order at 10:04 a.m. This Zoom webinar is live streamed on YouTube on the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission YouTube channel. For anyone in the public watching who would prefer to watch via a different platform than they are currently using, please visit our social media at Redistricting MI. Our live stream today includes closed captioning. Closed captioning, ASL interpretation, in addition to Spanish, Arabic, and Bengali translation services, will be provided for effective participation in today's meeting. Please email us at redistricting@michigan.gov for additional viewing options or details on accessing language translation services for this meeting. People with disabilities needing other specific accommodations should also contact redistricting@michigan.gov. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available on our website, www.michigan.gov/micrc, for viewing at a later date. This meeting is also being transcribed, and those closed caption transcripts will be made available and posted on the website, in addition to written public comment submissions. There's also a public comment portal that may be accessed by visiting the website, which is once again, www.michigan.gov/micrc. Members of the media who have questions before, during, or after the meeting should direct those questions to Edward Woods III, Executive Director of the Commission. He can be reached at woodse3@michigan.gov. For the public watching and the public record, I'll turn to Department of State staff to take note of the commissioners present.
Good morning, commissioners. Please say present when I call your name. If you are attending the meeting remotely, please announce during roll call you are attending the meeting remotely, and unless your absence is due to military duty, announce your physical location by stating the county, city, township, or village and the state from which you're attending the meeting. I will begin roll call alphabetically with Commissioner Andrade.
Present from Imlay Township, Michigan.
Commissioner Callahan.
Present from Mexico.
Commissioner Curry. Commissioner Eid.
Good morning, Ms. Young. Present, remotely attending from Detroit, Michigan.
Thank you. Commissioner Kellum.
Good morning. I am present and I'm remotely attending from Detroit, Michigan.
Thank you. Commissioner Lang.
Present, attending from Reed City, Michigan.
Thank you. Commissioner Lett. Commissioner Muldoon.
Present from Carlton, Michigan.
Thank you. Commissioner Orton.
Present, attending remotely from Battle Creek, Michigan.
Thank you. Commissioner Zatella.
Present, attending remotely from Wayne County, Michigan.
Thank you. Commissioner Villette.
Present.
You're on mute.
I'm sorry, attending remotely from Highland Township.
Thank you. Commissioner Wagner. Commissioner Weiss.
Present, attending remotely from Saginaw Township, Saginaw, Michigan.
Mr. Chair, you have 10 members, commissioners present. You do have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Young.
You're welcome.
We will now adopt the agenda. As a reminder to the public watching, you can view today's agenda at www.michigan.gov/micrc. I'll now entertain a motion to approve the agenda, commissioners.
So moved.
We have a motion by Commissioner Weiss. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. We have a motion to adopt the agenda made by Commissioner Weiss, seconded by Commissioner Muldoon. Is there any debate on the motion? I do not see any hands, so we will go to vote. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Any opposed, please raise your hand and say nay. The ayes have it, and the agenda is adopted. If there is no objection, the next item on the agenda is public comments. We'll begin public comments pertaining to agenda topics for today's meeting. Is there any objections, commissioners? Seeing none, we will proceed with public comments. Individuals who have signed up and indicated they would like to provide remote public commentary to the commission will now be allowed. I will call your name and our staff will unmute you. If you are on a computer, you will be prompted by the Zoom app to unmute your microphone and speak. If you are joining us via phone, a voice will say the host wants you to speak and prompt you to press *6 to unmute. Please note, if you are experiencing technical or audio issues or we do not hear from you for 3 to 5 seconds, we will move on to the next person in line and return to you after they are done speaking. If your audio still does not work, at that point, you can email us at redistricting@michigan.gov and we will help you troubleshoot so you can participate during the next public comment period. Today, you will have 90 seconds to address the commission, and please conclude your remarks when you hear the timer. We have quite a few folks who have signed up to speak to us today. First up being Susan Smith.
Susan, it does appear that you are unmuted. Can you say something? We're not able to hear you yet.
Yes, I can. I don't see myself. Can I turn on the camera or not?
I don't believe you can, but you can go ahead and address the commission.
Okay, that's fine. Good morning, commissioners. I'm Susan Smith, redistricting chair for the League of Women Voters of Michigan. The desire for fair maps was the motivation for passing the constitutional amendment that created the commission. The commission's partisan fairness expert, Dr. Lisa Hanley, gave a very helpful presentation to the MICRC on June 12. In her presentation, Dr. Hanley noted that using the partisan fairness composite scores, the top 6 maps were Zatella, Heron, Callum, Finch, Cardinal, and Starling. During the following discussion with the commission, Dr. Hanley noted that the partisan fairness scores on the Dove map were an outlier on the efficiency gap measure and fell in the middle on the mean median difference measure, and that the Dove map was not the fairest map. Dr. Hanley pointed out that there was very little difference in the efficiency gap scores for the various maps, except for the Dove map, which scored 4.6%. The League of Women Voters urges that the Dove map be eliminated from consideration as you deliberate on which map to send to the court. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith, for addressing the commission. Next up is Yusuf Yusuf.
Hi, commissioners. Can you hear me?
We can. Good morning, Yusuf.
Good morning, commissioners. I have concerns about 3 maps, which just disenfranchises my Chaldean community. Those maps that split the Chaldean communities are Huron, Stella, and Starling. Please do not use these 3 maps. There are 9 other maps that respect the Chaldean community. Chaldeans are a protected minority. We are requesting just 1 district in Michigan that respects our community of interest. On November 4th, 2021, you commissioners were discussing Dr. Hanley's analysis that was done on the Chaldean community in Sterling Heights during your meeting. Please take a look at her analysis of Sterling Heights again and include the Chaldeans in Troy and Rochester Hills. East of Sterling Heights was not included with the Linden map, which disfranchises the Chaldean community. This is not the first time you have heard this, commissioners. I myself have stated this on the Cherry V2 map comment portal, which had the same District 10 as Linden. My exact comment in 2021 was, please include East Sterling Heights with the rest of Sterling Heights and Troy. Do not disfranchise the Chaldean community living in East Sterling Heights. You can see that specific comment on Cherry V2 plan. but Easterly Heights wasn't included. It was lumped with Detroit, and subsequently the Linden map was thrown out. Huron lumps Easterly Heights with the sections of Detroit. Huron should not be considered based on this fact alone. Starling and Stella also split the Chaldean community. Please go back and look at Dr. Henley's analysis. You have 9 other maps to choose from, commissioners. Chaldeans in Michigan have been in Michigan for over 5 decades. We own many businesses. Please, commissioners, consider us. And thank you so much for all your time.
Thank you, Yusuf. We appreciate your comments. Next up is Jamie Rowe.
Good morning, commissioners. Want to thank you all for the opportunity to speak and all the hard work you've done throughout this process. As you reach the end of your work, everyone is interested how you will go about landing the plane. Your priorities are clearly laid out in Michigan Constitution. 1, equal population and VRA compliance. 2, geographically contiguous. 3, reflect the state's diversity and COIs. 4, partisan fairness using accepted measures. 5, no disfavor or favor for any politician. 6, consideration of city and township boundaries, and 7, compactness. Some have argued for moving the goalposts at the end with new partisan fairness standards, and even to elevate priority number 5 above all else. Please don't allow the rules to be changed at this important time. One map seems to accomplish all of the priorities laid out, the cardinal map. VRA compliant, contiguous, protects vital COIs, including the Clear Lake, St. Clair, and Chaldean COIs in Macomb County, where I live, scores the best on your established standards of judging partisan fairness, no favor to any politician, and communities were taken into account, and it's reasonably compact. As you've heard, the Heron and Satella maps we've heard so much about destroy the Clear Chaldean COI by splitting it into 3 districts. They argue you look past this fact in the name of the newfound partisan fairness standards. That would be a violation of the Michigan Constitution. Please use the cardinal map, which protects every vital COI and is a fair map. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe. We appreciate your comments. Next up is Mayor Robert A. McCrate.
Good morning. Can the commission hear me?
Good morning. We can.
I want to thank you for allowing me time to comment this morning, and also for your hard work on this commission as well. It's not an easy task you have in front of you. So I'll be short and to the point. We have a few numbers for you from the city of Romulus here. We feel that the cardinal map divides the city of Romulus. The north part of Romulus is largely African-American who already feel disconnected. We've had a great initiative with my administration to remove that feeling, but removing that side of our community to another community under a different district would substantiate their concerns and their fears and lessen their voice. Also the Dove map, 373 also divides our community. We'd like to see those taken away. 2 maps that we do favor are Zatella in the 404 and Kellum in the 403. Those support our initiatives. The reason Romulus is different than most communities here is because we do house DTW, the largest international airport in the state of Michigan, 34 million travelers annually, 80,000 jobs associated, 0 tax dollars come from the airport to our community. And those burdens that are associated with housing the airport are forced to be placed on the burden of the 25,000 residents who work here. Economic development, Romulus has added over 3 million square feet in growth and industry to the region in recent years. We want to make sure that those that initiative is substantiated by one voice at the Senate level. As I said before, we've already been split into 3 factions at the House. So we want to make sure that we stay whole and in District 4 in the city of Romulus. And we do have unanimous support from all of our elected officials to support that initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you for addressing the commission. Next up is Sandra H.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can. Good morning.
Okay, good morning. It's the job of this commission to draw maps that prescribe to the standards of the United States Constitution, the Michigan Constitution, and the Federal Voting Rights Act. With those considerations at the top of this list, it is very clear that the best map under consideration is the cardinal map. The cardinal map has 4 voting rights acts compliant districts. It protects our most vital communities of interest in Macomb County, particularly Lake St. Clair, the Clinton River watershed, and that of our Chaldean neighbors. It also achieves among the highest partisan fairness scores that this commission has chosen to follow of any maps currently under consideration, while also protecting our communities of interest. I urge the commission to adopt the cardinal map. If the cardinal map isn't selected, I urge the passage of Commissioner Curry's map, which does an outstanding job of protecting all the communities of interest in Macomb County. Finally, I'm very concerned about what's going on in Macomb County with our sinkhole and incidents, and the fact that we need representation in an area who has a clear understanding and comprehension of this issue. Candace Miller has done a phenomenal job fixing these sinkholes with local officials to resolve this. Working with elected officials in this area has really accelerated her progress. We want this to continue. Again, thank you for your time.
Thank you for addressing the commission. We appreciate your comments. Next up is Nancy T.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I want to thank the commission for listening to the analysis of Dr. Hadley on the partisan fairness metrics that direct your work. I appreciated Dr. Hadley for taking voters, not politicians, to task for their random, newly invented partisan fairness standards and their attempt to put their standard above communities of interest. The truth is that VNP has changed since the constitutional amendment was passed in 2018. They were then a ballot question committee that had to report their donors, and today they are a partisan political dark money group. They are using countless dollars raised from unknown sources to throw a cinder block on the scales you use to choose the best map. The fact is that the cardinal map has a partisan fairness score as good as any map under consideration using accepted measures of partisan fairness as required by the Michigan Constitution. The cardinal map also defends important communities of interest in Macomb County where I live, such as the Clear Lake, St. Clair, and Chaldean communities of interest. The Heron and Zatella maps promoted by VNP destroy the Chaldean community of interest by dividing them into 3 separate districts. I do not question the sincerity of voices that have come to the table, but I think they've been sold a bill of goods by the dark money group into parroting their talking points. You've done solid work on these maps, and it is clear that the cardinal map is fair, protects vital communities of interest across the region, and has among the best partisan fairness scores. Please consider the cardinal map. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy, for addressing the commission. We appreciate your comments. Next up is Rick T.
That participant is not present, but Chair, I would also like to say for all of our attendees, can you please make sure that you are named the same way that you signed up for public comment? Otherwise, I'm not able to determine who you are or where you may fall in line. So if you have a generic iPhone or phone number in the attendee list, if you could click on the triple dots and then click to rename yourself, whatever you signed up as, that would be helpful so that we can proceed. But there currently is no Rick T signed up, Chair.
Okay. How about Robert Little?
That participant is also not currently logged in.
Do we have a Heba with us this morning?
Yes, we do. Hello.
Good morning. Hi.
All right. So hello, everyone. My name is Hiba. I'm a recent college graduate and a resident of Southeast Michigan. I believe that the Sitzella and Huron maps are the best at making sure that communities of interest, especially communities of color, have their voices heard. For example, Muslim communities are kept together in Hamtramck with neighboring areas of Detroit, as well as Dearborn with Dearborn Heights. I lean towards the Sitzella map overall because it includes Pontiac together with like-minded communities in Oakland County, such as Southfield, which helps protect Black voters as a whole in Oakland County. Thank you for your time. Let's all work together to protect the voices of the communities of color, which helps protect democracy as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you for addressing the commission. Let's see, next up to speak is Omar.
That participant is not present.
Okay, how about Aisha?
That participant is also not present.
Let's go to Hafsa.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hafsa, and I'm a resident of Farmington Hills and a college student. My primary concern is making sure that communities of color and immigrant communities have their voices heard during elections. This includes Muslim communities, especially because many of us are immigrants from immigrant families and also from the Arab, South Asian, and Black communities. With that in mind, I think that maps 376 and 404 do the best job of protecting these various communities of interest. For example, in both maps, Muslim communities in Hamtramck and adjacent neighborhoods in Detroit are kept together, and likewise with the communities in Dearborn and Dearborn Heights. I appreciate the commission giving time to hear from ordinary community members such as myself. Please ensure that fair maps are drawn for all.
Thank you for addressing the commission. Next up is Alex Adel.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Alex, and I'm a resident of Ann Arbor and am a community activist. As our state goes through this redraw process of the state Senate maps, my primary concern is making sure that communities of interest, including communities of color and LGBT+ communities, have their votes heard during elections. With that focus in mind, I think that the Huron and Satella maps do the best job of protecting our various communities of interest in Southeast Michigan. Between the two, I lean towards Satella map or map 404. For example, it protects Black voters in Oakland County by connecting Pontiac with Southfield, and it makes sure LGBT+ voices are heard by keeping together Ferndale and the Detroit neighborhood of Palmer Park. Thank you very much for your time today. Let's work together to ensure fair maps for our communities, which will protect our democracy.
Thank you, Alex, for addressing the commission. We appreciate your comments. Next up is Curtis Fernandez.
Hello, can you all hear me?
We can. Good morning, Curtis.
Morning. I want to thank you for having me here today. I want to again reiterate my support for the Satella and Heron maps. I lean towards the Satella map because it does a slightly better job of protecting communities of interest. For example, Black voters in Oakland County by keeping Pontiac with Southfield, and it also protects LGBTQ communities by keeping together Ferndale with the Palmer Park neighborhood of Detroit. Again, I think these two maps, Satella and Heron, are the best maps for fairness and for equitable representation, with a slight preference towards a Satella map. Thank you for your time, and thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you, Curtis. We appreciate your comments. Next up, I think it is a Miss Kariga from the NAACP.
That participant is not present.
All right, let's move on to Dan H.
Yes, good morning, commissioners. Thanks for the time. I urge the commissioners to reject the Heron map. As a citizen living in the 11th district that was ruled unconstitutional by federal courts, I'm troubled by the fact that only minimal changes have been made to that district. Worse is the fact that these limited changes seem to have been done to benefit the current incumbent, which is a violation of guidelines in the Michigan Constitution. Additionally, the Heron and Satella maps divide the Chaldean American community of interest into 3 districts, diminishing their influence. The Chaldean community is a vital part of our region and should be given the same consideration as others in the region. I urge the commission to reject Heron and Satella. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for addressing the commission. Next, we have Nomi Joyrich.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you to everyone on the commission. You have one of the most important tasks in our state. I've studied all of the maps and their analytics, and there are 2 maps that are equal to or improve upon the current map. My favorite map is Zatella. It addresses the concerns and comments of so many different communities of interest, including the Chaldean community, as well as many others. I've heard many leaders of Pontiac explain that this map gives Pontiac the strongest voice and the greatest chance of Black representation. Zatella improves upon the current partisan fairness and addresses the concerns of all the communities of interest. I also love the Heron map, and I appreciate that it is truly a collaborative map and the most nonpartisan of all the maps. It's one of the few maps that improves on Lyndon's partisan fairness. It has a 0.3 mean median score, and the Cardinal has a very unacceptable 2.6%. Claims that the Cardinal has a comparable score is simply untrue. Heron does the best job at addressing the communities of interest, all of them. Thank you for providing us with the various metrics for partisan fairness. When you evaluate all the metrics, not just cherry pick a few of them, it's clear that the Heron map is much more fair than Cardinal, Dove, Orton, Finch, Starling, Crane, Lang, Wagner, or Curry. Heron is also strongest for my own community of interest. It keeps the community of Farmington Hills intact, and it keeps me in the same district as my synagogue. I urge you to adopt either the Heron or the Zatella map. Again, thank you so much for all of your patience and hard work. Democracy is depending on you, and I thank you for rising to this challenge.
Thank you for addressing the commission. We appreciate your comments. Next up is Sherry Gay Dognogo.
Thank you for this opportunity to comment. I know that there are a number of names, Chewy, I believe you called not too long ago, that is on the call. But I'm happy to be on today as the plaintiff agent, asking you guys to strike the Heron map, which is 91% the same as the Linden map from the 6th district, Senate district. I'm here to support the Crane map, however, which has the cleanest boundaries, VRA compliant, compact, contiguous. I know that the number of people are still leaning toward one of the lower ranked compliant issues is partisan fairness. While the Crane does provide that, that is not the highest rating with respect to VRA compliance. And so the Crane map is supported by the NAACP, supported by the Arab American Civil Rights League. It's supported by many of our community members in the Latina community. It ensures strong 3 African American seats and a seat that is in the Middle Eastern community that is held together. This is the absolute best district that I saw. I saw that work was built up on based on the initial Curry map, the progression through the Orton, and then the resulting of the Crane map. So that is what I'm supporting. Thank you.
Thank you for addressing the commission. We appreciate your comments. Next up is Angela Davenport.
Hello, yes. I wanted to say good morning, commissioners, and I hope you can hear me.
We can. Good morning.
Excellent. So thank you for this process. The MICRC was created to make sure partisan fairness standards are being upheld, and I'm grateful for the work that you're doing. And that said, in my opinion, 376, Huron and Scatella are the 2 best maps, not just in terms of fairness, but just in terms also of being racially fair. And in my opinion, these are the 2 maps that truly adhere to the spirit of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. But for me, being a lifelong resident of Southfield since I was 5 years old, 404 is the one I'd like to uplift. This map would ensure Pontiac receives the Black representation that it should, and would connect historically marginalized communities of color in Macomb together, giving them a strong voice with East Point. So that said, I've my whole life done things in Southfield with Oak Park, Pontiac, and would love to see that continue. Also, lifting up LGBTQ communities in Ferndale and Palmer Park. I just really see this map giving communities of interest the strongest voice, and want to say that everyone deserves to feel like their voice is being uplifted in a democracy, and this map achieves that. So thank you.
Thank you for addressing the commission. Next up, we have Lori Kruth.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Good morning, we can.
Good morning. I really appreciate the time you're putting into crafting these maps and making them available to the public. It's not a job I envy. Having analyzed them all, it's clear that the maps with the highest partisan fairness scores are 376 Heron and 404 Zatella. For Heron, this is a community you don't hear from much. I'm a part of an active kayaking community. We kayak weekly on the Detroit River and regularly on nearby lakes. And naturally, my lifestyle depends upon the kayaking community, which has a keen interest in the waterways. We're also aligned with the environmental communities of interest. Heron does a great job uniting the waterfront communities, providing a voice for the environment and waterways. It combines the Detroit riverfront and Lake Sinclair, River Rouge, and with E-Course. I love that it is by far the best mean median score. It makes sense that it was developed by a Republican, Democrat, and independent commissioner representing all the political interests. I also really like Zatella 404. Likewise, it has an excellent partisan fairness score. It's especially good at putting together the LGBT community, which is also a community of interest. And it solicited actively comments from many communities of interest, from the Chaldean, Asian American, Italian, and Bangladeshi communities. It creates a strong downriver district. Like Heron, it unites environmental communities. It also unites two key environmental communities of interest. I will leave it at that. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Lori. We appreciate your comments. Next, we have Rashida Chowdhury.
Chair, that participant is present. However, before I promote her, I just want to acknowledge that Commissioner Curry has joined us. Commissioner Curry, can you tell us where you're joining remotely from? Okay, we will come back to her. I'm not sure if her sound is not working or what, but we will come back.
Wonderful. Welcome, Commissioner Curry. All right, Raisha Chowdhury.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I am Raisha, and I'm a Warren community member and Muslim Asian American who deeply cares to empower my communities. I wanted to come here and share that after reviewing the complicated maps, I believe that map 404 and 376 best serves us. In these maps, reviewing the in these maps, the partisan fairness is high, and from what I'm able to understand, it will serve the communities I care about and communities of color most compared to the other maps that exist. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you finalize the most fair map for all, including communities of color.
Thank you, Raisha. We appreciate your comments. Next up is Rhonda Williams.
That participant is not present.
Let's go to Michael Davis.
Can you hear me?
We can. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning. I'm Michael Davis with Promote the Vote, statewide coalition. Voters Not Politicians is a different organization from PTB and not a member of our coalition. BNP submitted the close race analyses reviewed by Dr. Hanley last week. In her presentation, Dr. Hanley argued that BNP's reliance on 4 elections compared to the 16 she used produced volatile scoring. In contrast, Promote the Vote in our scorecards weighted 14 elections over 5 years, making it significantly more reliable than BNP's. Primary difference between Promote the Vote and Dr. Hanley's method is that Dr. Hanley included the 2012 elections, which is an outdated high watermark for Dems that skews the composite results. Dr. Hanley then noted that 3 of the 4 elections included in the BNP aggregate score fell in presidential election years. While presidential election year contests make up most, 3/4 of BNP's index, they make up less than half, 2/5 of Promote the Vote's index. So to the extent that Dr. Hanley might think that high turnout elections distort true preferences, our index, in contrast, uses even fewer presidential elections than Dr. Hanley. Dr. Hanley including an outdated Southern gerrymanders was confusing because our Constitution doesn't call for metrics relative to other states' gerrymanders. In fact, this commission and criteria were approved by voters precisely to avoid maps like the examples you were given. And to your credit, you've done that. Dr. Hanley's analysis agreed with BNP on 5 of the top 6 fairest plans, and the top 3 mirrors PTBs with 404 atop the list. Maps should be fair to parties, but not at the expense of people. And you have maps that accommodate multiple COIs. So no one COI argument should override those maps with more considerations and better partisan fairness scores. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. We appreciate your comments. Next up is Anthony Scannell.
Hello, Michigan Commission. One map would split, in particular, the one of my family's members' houses from our across the street neighbors there, and I thought that was interesting. Not saying you shouldn't choose it, but I wouldn't like that. I didn't realize they lived on the edge of a voting precinct, but that would be the Heron map, which many people seem to like. No, I don't know if you noticed, the plaintiffs like the same few maps that I did. Interesting. But okay, I'm concerned about this document procedure for the selection. Step 1, this facilitated discussion. Why do the collaborative maps come first in alphabetical order? I think the individual ones are supposed to be on an equal footing. So I'd amend that. Step 2, the whole rounds of elimination. I don't really know where that's coming from in the Constitution. I mean, I guess that's the way you want to do it. I don't really like the whole elimination idea. Three rounds of voting there. It just seems, I don't know, pulled out of a hat. And then if it comes to step 3, the ranked vote, I have an issue with the secretary will create a Microsoft form. And to me, that is in essence a secret digital ballot. And because from the time the choice is made by you, voted in ranked order, and then it's revealed to the public, it's held in secrecy for a period of time. Rules section 9.1, all votes must be held and determined in public. So I'd amend that step 3, paragraphs B and C, or you can just apply section 9.2 of your rules and request a written ballot should the ranked vote come up, and please dispose of this Microsoft nonsense. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scannell. We appreciate your comments. Next, we have James Gallant.
Prior to calling on Mr. Gallant, it looks like Commissioner Curry's sound is now working. Commissioner Curry, can you tell us where you're joining remotely from?
Joining remotely from Detroit, Michigan.
Thank you. And Commissioner Wagner is also now present. Commissioner Wagner, can you tell us where you're joining remotely from?
Live and remote from Eaton Township, Michigan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome, Commissioners Curry and Wagner.
Can you hear me now?
All right. Yes, Mr. Gallant, we can hear you. Good morning.
Right.
Please proceed.
Thank you, James Gallant, Marquette. These are my opinions. Please publish the Voters Not Politicians policy change that you denied by unanimous consent, Mr. Chair, because I couldn't find that on the website, and it's not on it, and it's not added to her posting. And former witches is the former member has said that this is going to get messy, and here we are, you neck deep in guano again. There you go. Concerning the policy for selection of the final maps that you have today in front of you, where it says secretary, that means Secretary of State Joyce Benson. Okay, and now you're more than half of the way through, and you formally consider the VNP policy changes that violated Mike Brady's instructions for you to follow Robert's rules. No discussion before a motion second. And that's page 366, line 8. Remember, under step 1 of your proposal policy, it says you do facilitate. What? Facilitate a dialogue and a discussion, and then you can amend the map by majority vote, except amendment is a secondary motion requiring the attachment to an immediately pending main motion. So where's the main motion you're supposed to be attaching that amendment to? See, this is all backwards, and you know full well, Mr. Eid, I think you know full well that this is a violation of common law, parliamentary procedure, Robert's Rules of Order. This is why you should have a main motion to approve the final Senate map and 12 motions to approve the draft maps laid on the table. So you can continue to bring them off the table and amend them again, and then put them back on the table. And now you proceed with this breach 3 times, like Mr. Scannell said, and then you just move on without a motion second pending. This is.
Thank you, Mr. Gallant. We appreciate your comments. All right, next is Mr. Gilmer Hill.
Good morning. Can I be heard?
We can. Good morning.
Well,
You can.
good morning, and thank you all for all your hard work. I have to say the word backwards is new to me, but I might start using that. So I'd like to comment on a community of interest issue that I have specifically with a few of the maps that connect Pontiac, Southfield, and Oak Park. I believe that decision is very well intentioned. I think that it is very important to focus on Black communities of interest and Black voting power. But the court was pretty clear. The way to do that is through considering communities of interest that have ties. Southfield and Oak Park absolutely make sense together. And I think they make much more sense with somewhere like Farmington Hills, given the Black middle class and Jewish middle class community of interest that does exist there. I would urge that Southfield and Pontiac really don't have anything in common except for the fact that they both happen to have relatively large Black populations. And that's specifically the thing that the court has said should not be what you use as a proxy for communities of interest. I think you shouldn't fall into the trap of just connecting together all the Black people in Oakland County. I think that's not the right way to make a VRA district. And I believe that the other maps that you have available prove that you don't need to do that in order to get a VRA district. So specifically, that's maps 404, 364, and 385, which is Crane, Dove, and the Satella individual map. Those all create this sort of what to me looks very much like a racial gerrymander in Oakland County. And I think you can empower the communities in Southfield and Pontiac without doing that. Thank you.
Chair, you are muted if you are speaking.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we will return to Rick T.
Can you hear me?
We can. Good morning.
Okay, thank you to the commission for the opportunity on this important issue. I currently live in one of the districts that has been ruled unconstitutional by the federal courts. So I and my neighbors are impacted by your decisions. I have many Chaldean neighbors who are very concerned about their community of interest being split apart into 3 different districts by the Heron and Zestella maps. Please don't pick either of those maps. The map that does the best job of meeting all the criteria that guide your work is clearly the Cardinal map. It defends the Lake St. Clair community of interest by keeping the 12th district unchanged. It creates a new district where I live that defends the Clinton River watershed community of interest in a new fair 11th district. It defends the clear Chaldean American community of interest by keeping 3 major parishes, their foundations, which do so much good work in the community, and a large segment of Chaldean population in a district where they must be heard. It also has among the best partisan fairness scores. The Cardinal map is the best map, and I hope you should adopt it. Thank you for your time, and I wish you the best of luck in your deliberations.
Thank you, Rick, for addressing the commission. Next, we will return to Robert Little.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Having studied the proposed maps, the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission is facilitating for usage. I firmly believe that the most effective and useful map under consideration is the Cardinal map. That's number 373. The Cardinal map most successfully fits the parameters of the stated goals the Commission is framed to find while protecting the equity of the process and the interests of the people of Macomb County. In specific, the Cardinal Plan serves the voters in the Chaldean community while it fits a priority on protecting the watershed of the Clinton River. I urge the committee, with all of the work that they've done, to approve the map that fits best. That would be the Cardinal map. Thank you.
It's not map.
Thank you for addressing the commission. Next up, we have Aisha.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
We can. Good morning, Aisha.
Good morning. My name is Aisha and I live in Farmington Hills and I go to school at Wayne State. As an Indian American, I believe it's important to protect the voices of communities of color, such as but not limited to Asian communities. The Cizella and Huron maps do a very good job of making sure the collective voting power of these communities are maintained. I do lean towards the Cizella map in this regard. For example, the Cizella map keeps Asian communities in Troy and Rochester Hills together. Warren, which has a sizable Black and Asian communities, is kept whole and is also combined with Madison Heights, which has smaller but growing Black and Asian populations and is a major center for Asian-owned businesses. Thank you for taking the time to listen to your public efforts to draw equitable maps to protect our democracy.
Thank you for addressing the commission. Okay, is Miss Carriga here with us?
I do not see anyone by that name in the attendees list.
Okay. I do see a few attendees that have their hand raised. We'll go to, I think it's Saif or Safe.
Good morning, Commission. Chair, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. It's Thursday, June 20th at 10:52. And my name is Saif Al-Sanad. It's pronounced safe like the base is safe. And I'm calling on behalf of Warren C. Evans administration, pledging our support to the Crane map. And we believe the Crane map, the reason why we're supporting the Crane map for several reasons, and I'll start with number one. It supports the constituents of this district. 2, it ensures fair representation. 3, it satisfies the needs of Black and Brown communities. 4, it empowers people by enabling them to select members of their communities as representatives. 5, the map has the least amount of cuts within county lines, particularly to Wayne County. 6, it also ensures 3 Senate seats in the city of Detroit. And 7, it satisfies several communities of interest. Again, thank you for allowing me to speak today. Appreciate you.
Thank you for addressing the commission. And last to speak is KF.
Chair, Commissioner Lang does have her hand raised.
Commissioner Lang?
Never mind. I'm just going to draw it back, but I think we need to be consistent in our policies. Thank you.
Good morning. You just called KF, Karen Ferguson.
Good morning. Please proceed.
Good morning. I fully support the Crane map, and it is quite telling that most of the input has not supported the Crane map, which is the fair map, and keeps the minority and Black citizens involved more. I also noticed how ironically certain buzzwords were used, like joining Palmer Park with another community, but some of the people that probably are voting for that map were nowhere to be found when all the people were being evicted in Palmer Park. So I would hope, based on the previous caller and what Ms. Gay Danyogo said, that the Crane map is the most fair map or the fairest map, and there is no reason to even think about any other map. And that's my input.
Thank you for addressing the commission. We have a Priya Roy.
Hello, Commissioner. Can you hear me?
You can. Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, everyone. My name is Priya. I'm from Hamtramck, and I'm a recent high school graduate from Hamtramck High, planning on going to the University of Michigan this fall. As a Bangladeshi American in Hamtramck, I value when maps have bipartisan fairness and positively serve people of color and my community. And I have seen so many of my community members struggle, and I wish that they are considered more. And therefore, during my review of the state Senate maps, I feel that map 374, the Huron map, would be best. And therefore, I thank all the commissioners for their hard work and dedication thus far. I urge them to continue working towards fair maps for all, especially those that ensure that all communities of color do not have their voting rights diluted. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for addressing the commission. That concludes public comment for today's meeting. We thank everybody who has provided input and invite you to show up, speak up, and let your voices be heard. Next on the agenda is item 5, unfinished business. We have 5A, FY24 budget supplemental budget request. If there is no objection, I will ask Executive Director Woods to facilitate this item. Is there any objection, commissioners? Hearing none, we will move on. Please proceed, Mr. Woods.
Thank you, Commissioner Eid. Is everyone able to see my screen? Yep, I want to thank our local counsel, David Fink and Nate Fink, who are working with me on the budget supplemental and also on the Michigan Department of State. The commission's request is included in the budget supplemental. After completing the fiscal year 25 budget, the legislature will address the request. It is expected that action on the request will be completed before the 4th of July. So I just kind of want to give you an update publicly with regards to where we are with regards to the supplemental request, and just want to thank everyone that's involved knowingly, unknowingly behind the scenes in terms of making this happen. So that's where we are with regards to the supplemental request. If there's any questions, I can take them at this time.
Are there any questions for Director Woods, commissioners?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Woods. And thank you to everybody that helps, make that funding go through and do all the work to get those requests in. We'll now move on to new business. First is item new business 6A, 2024 procedures for selection of a Senate map. Without objection, I will ask local counsel Nate Fink to facilitate this item. Is there any objection, commissioners? Seeing none, we'll move on. Mr. Fink, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, commissioners. If Mr. Woods could share his screen, I'd appreciate. Otherwise, I can share the document. I just wanted to go through the proposed 2024 procedure for selection of the Senate plan, the Senate map, through this remedial process. This document, the red lines on this document that you can now see on your screen, are against the House plan, House remedial process that the commission had adopted before going through the voting process and ultimately adopting the Motown Sound map during the House remedial phase. So the red lines here are the changes relative to that document. Most of the changes are simply changing words like House to Senate, and updating dates, because obviously the previous dates related to the House procedure and this relates to the Senate. The only substantive change or proposed change that we have included in this document is in one of the voting procedures. Well, sorry, you know what? I think this may be the older version, Edward. I have the other one if you want me to pull it up, or I believe you shared it with the commission on Tuesday. As he's bringing that up, just as a preview, and of course, this was shared with the commission on Tuesday, as I indicated, with the red line. So commissioners can see the suggested change to the voting procedure in the initial round of voting related to the trying to achieve a constitutional majority before moving on to ranked choice voting if it becomes necessary. There we go. Thank you, Edward. So as you can see right here, this is in section C within, Edward, if you could just scroll up, is this just so I'm clear for the record, is it step, I think it's identified as step 2. Yeah, step 2, subsection C. So the proposed revision is as follows, and you can see it on your screen. You'll go, the voting process as it stands now, all of the collaborative maps and individual maps will go forward to an initial vote to be taken by the commission. Of course, any individual every individual commissioner is eligible to submit one of the maps that had been presented for public comment. They can submit that map in for the voting process, and the collaborative maps then go in. Under the proposal that I'm presenting now, the commission would take an initial vote on, I believe it's the 12 maps, unless the commission decides to remove any of those from consideration, which I believe was done before, of the collaborative maps, which I believe was done with a couple of maps, 1 or 2 maps before the House procedure. But of those maps that get presented for the vote to the commission would take the initial vote. If a constitutional majority is achieved, and to remind the commission what a constitutional majority is, would be a majority of the commissioners present, and within that majority must include at least 2 members from each of the 3 groups, at least 2 Republican affiliating commissioners, at least 2 Democratic affiliated commissioners, and 2 unaffiliated commissioners would have to support that particular map. If the commission achieves a constitutional majority on a plan in that first round of voting, that map gets adopted, and that's the map that gets put forward to the court. If no constitutional majority is achieved on that first vote, under my the proposal that I'm presenting to the commission now, any plan, whether it's a collaborative plan or an individual plan, that does not receive more than one vote in that first round would then be removed from consideration for the subsequent round. In your rules, you have adopted a procedure that would have 3 rounds of voting in this initial set of voting to try to establish a constitutional majority before you would move on to the ranked choice voting. Because there's more plans under consideration than there were last time around during the House plan, I'm proposing that in order to sort of streamline this and I think make for a more efficient process and a more effective process, the proposal that I'm presenting here is that any plans receiving 1 vote or less will be removed from consideration from the subsequent round of voting. But to be clear, any plans removed from consideration pursuant to this subsection during this voting process would still remain eligible for submission during the ranked choice voting process, should that process become necessary. So if the commission does not achieve a constitutional majority during the either rounds 1, 2, or 3 of the voting process for that initial step, any maps, any plans that had been removed because they didn't get more than 1 vote during that initial process would still be eligible to be submitted for ranked choice voting, and if necessary, the random draw. I'll pause here because I see there's a couple of questions. I think Commissioner Lang's hand was up first, but I'm not sure.
Commissioner Lang?
Yeah, can you say unconstitutional? You cannot remove maps, especially if they're an individual map, and tell somebody, a commissioner on this commission, that they cannot vote for a map that it's being withdrawn. Not happening. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be blunt, but that's kind of my nature. Not happening. We have a constitutional right to vote on whichever map we feel is the best. And you can't eliminate. The Constitution specifically says. So I appreciate what you're trying to get at because of the number, or I would suggest changing it to say that individual maps are not included in that, but the collaborative are. Otherwise, you may end up looking at another lawsuit. And I'm just throwing that out there because there is a constitutional right for commissioners to vote on whichever map. There is nothing in the Constitution that says maps get thrown out. So I think you're walking kind of a gray line with that, and I would rethink it. Just my opinion. I'm not an attorney. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lang. And if I could just respond to that, I hear your concern. The Constitution doesn't say anything about how many rounds of voting have to occur in that initial set. And to be clear, there would be 1 round of voting where all of the maps would be under consideration and all of the maps would be able to be voted on, individual, collaborative. The concept here is there are a number of maps under consideration, and I think that ideally the commission would be able to select a map through the constitutional majority process, for lack of a better term, rather than ultimately going to ranked choice voting or random draw if those become necessary. Obviously, those are there, and if we get to that, that's fine. But if a map, whether it's individual or collaborative, can only achieve a single vote in that first round, which again, they'll all be able to be voted on in that first round, then it seems to me that in order to sort of streamline the process and ideally achieve this constitutional majority, that would be the best way to do it. Again, this is just a proposal. Obviously, the commission can discuss whether it wants to adopt this revision. It's just an option for the commission to consider. Commissioner Zatella?
Yeah, I'm just curious, what is the genesis behind this suggestion? Is this something that you thought of on your own, or is this coming from a commissioner?
No, it wasn't coming from a commissioner. I consulted with some folks in MDOS. We had sort of worked through as they had initially drafted, I believe, or at least the revised version of the House procedure, and in sort of trying to conceptualize ways to streamline this and set up a process in which we're most likely to achieve a constitutional majority. This seemed to be a way to do it. Like I said, it's just an option to present. Commission can discuss whether they want to have this as an option or not, or as part of the procedure or not. But again, if a map that would be voted on, all the plans would be voted on the initial round. If they're not able to achieve more than one vote, it seems to me that it just makes sense to remove that from the batch and hopefully then make it more likely that you can achieve a constitutional majority, because again, everybody has an opportunity to vote on whichever map they want in that first round. But I guess to answer your question directly, no, this idea didn't come to me from a commissioner.
So it seems to me that you're trying to force a consensus where there isn't one. So we have 12 maps going into voting. We've in the past had many maps. I believe we had 8 congressional maps. It might have even been more the last time around. If a map's not generating interest, it's not going to be voted on. We don't need to remove it. And by removing it, we're potentially creating an option or a situation where we're bound. So let's take, for example, the Crane map and Commissioner Orton's map. They're very similar. So if we go through round 1 of voting and she votes for Crane, her map then drops off. And then if in a second round of voting, Crane drops off, and then the commission continues deliberations and start to come back to this concept that, okay, maybe that Crane map was actually pretty good. Maybe we can get a consensus around that. Well, now we no longer have that option because it's removed from consideration. So I think eliminating maps after one vote makes absolutely no sense. I think we should leave as many options out there. It's not hurting us to leave a map there. I mean, it's not like, there's some requirement we have to discuss it again, but it is giving the commission, number 1, options. Number 2, the ability to discuss and actually collaborate and come to a conclusion that everybody agrees with, rather than being forced into, now there's only 3 maps left and you have to pick one of them. That just seems very much trying to ram down certain maps that don't have consensus behind them whatsoever. So I think it's a terrible idea. I don't see why we would do it. We've been through this process many times. We went through the first round with 3 different maps and had, like I said, many maps and didn't need to have a rule like this in order to move things forward. And then we did the same thing with the House, and I'm sure we will do the same thing with the Senate, even with 12 maps. So it just seems very unnecessary and very much moving away from a concept of having a decision that is collaborative and worked on, even if it takes some time, and instead trying to force a decision on a particular map, even though that might not be what the majority of the people want. And then I do echo Rhonda's concerns about the individual maps. There is a constitutional right to submit them. And then saying after one vote, they get eliminated, it seems like it's acting contrary to that constitutional intent.
Commissioner Callahan?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, but I think it's pretty clear the Constitution doesn't say anything about every map is required to have multiple rounds of votes. So I think that's a bit of a red herring. With 13 commissioners and 12 maps, it's going to be hard to reach a consensus. If there's a map that can't even garner more than one vote, then I think it's a map that doesn't have very much momentum behind it. Doesn't hurt anything. It eases our discussions and ability to get a consensus behind one map if we drop out the ones that obviously have no support across the commission. So I like the proposal. I think it makes sense, makes the whole process more streamlined and more collaborative. We're not arguing over the outliers that nobody has any interest in.
So, and just to respond to Commissioner Zitella, this is, like I said, I'm trying to present an option that I certainly do believe is constitutional. Whether the commission wants to do this, it's up to the commission ultimately. not trying to, force a consensus. I do think that to the extent that we're able to create a situation in which the commission, again, can vote on that, take an initial vote, which I think satisfies the constitutional language. But if a map, a plan gets one vote when we have 12 under consideration, it seems to me that it makes sense to remove some of those options as you move forward, as you try to achieve the constitutional majority, with, again, the understanding that if ultimately that's not achieved, those maps would still be eligible to be submitted through for the ranked choice voting process. They're not being removed entirely. But again, just an option for the commission to consider.
Commissioner Zotella?
Yeah, I also just want to point out that just mathematically, this proposal is rigging the vote. Because if anyone wants a particular map to advance past the first round, they're going to have to name it in the first round of voting. That means they can't vote for another map that they might think is a good choice, which leaves people who, number one, don't have individual maps, or who haven't heard the map they want advanced named, have to potentially commit to a vote that they wouldn't in the first round, which eliminates their votes in the voting pool. So it just seems, shenanigans is a phrase we hear a lot in the YouTube channel, and this seems like shenanigans, and it seems like an attempt to rig voting.
Well, if I could respond, I'm certainly not have any interest in rigging voting or anything like that, or creating a process that would encourage that. It's simply an option to be presented to try to make this as efficient process as possible to hopefully achieve a constitutional majority through if they become necessary, rounds 2 and 3 of the first set of voting.
Mr. Fink, could you pull up the document again and go to section D?
I think Mr. Woods, can you pull it back up?
Can you go a little, can you scroll down a little bit? I'm looking at subsection E here. Another option could be to increase the rounds of voting. Maybe we could go, instead of 3, go to 5 before headed to ranked choice. That could be another thing we could look at.
Just to be clear, if I may, you mean
please,
as an alternative. So in other words, we wouldn't adopt this language, but instead add more rounds of voting?
Yeah, as an alternative or in addition to, we probably would have to vote on those separately, because I kind of see this as 3 separate things. We have the original language with just the Senate map, like the Senate name being changed from the House and the dates being changed. And then we have this proposal that you just presented, and perhaps a third with an increase in the number of times before moving to ranked choice. So, I mean, those could be one thing, or it could be 3 separate things. But if we can't come to consensus, because there are more maps this time around, maybe increasing it from a first, second, and third time to 5 times. And then if we still can't reach majority, the constitutional majority after a 5th time, going to step 3, the ranked choice voting process could be an option. I would wonder what people's thoughts are on that.
I see both Commissioner Lang and Zotella have their hands up.
Yes, I believe Commissioner Lang had her hand up first.
I would like the constitutional amendment, the part that talks about the voting brought up, so we can see it.
Please give me a second. Commissioner Lang.
I have it, Edward.
I also have it.
Are you able to read that at all, Commissioner Lang? I'm sorry, I can't quite tell how large or small it is.
I'm sorry, could you increase it just a little bit? My eyes and glasses are not as good as they used to be.
How do I do that? Hang on. Let me see if I can figure that out just a second.
If you want, I can switch.
Perfect, thank
Is that better?
That is, okay, I'm still unmuted. That is much better, thank you. Okay, so again, I would be open to a compromise as it relates to the collaborative maps. But clearly here, it says each commissioner may submit one proposed plan. You cannot remove a commissioner's plan. They have a constitutional right to have that plan in the pool. We've done it that way through every drawing session, Congressional, House, Senate. You can't come in 8th hour and change the rules and take away somebody's constitutional right. It doesn't matter if the commission doesn't like that person's map or not. They have a constitutional right. And you can't don't roll your eyes, Mr. E, please, that's disrespectful. Anyways, you cannot tell a commissioner that they cannot vote for the map that they want if it's their own map. I just feel like it is a gray area that you're putting us into for no reason. We've gone through this process multiple times. There's no reason to change it at this point. And like I said, I would be willing to compromise as it relates to the collaborative maps, but for individual maps, there shouldn't be a compromise on that. I mean, the Constitution says what it says. So I'm going to leave it at that until you guys decide you're going to vote or whatever you're going to do. Thank you.
For the record, I wasn't rolling my eyes. I had something in them. And you don't know how I'm going to vote yet. So why don't we wait to see how that happens? Commissioner Zatella.
Yeah, I want to make a motion to adopt the 2024 procedure for the selection of a Senate House map with the amendment of removing the proposed language under step 2C that was added there. I want to remove that. And then I would also amend step 2, what is currently listed as E, but the original was D, to and then the one below it, E/F, to say after a 5th vote. So D and E in the original will now move to ranked choice after a 5th vote. And then we would remove that language from step 2 vote C entirely. That will not be incorporated in the final plan.
Commissioner E, can you just have her repeat that again, just for the record, please? Commissioner Zatella, if you don't mind.
So a move to adopt this proposal with the removal of this language in C. Any plans receiving 1 vote or less, remove that. So we're adopting it without that language. That will then make what is currently D part of C. So the numbering will return to the original. And then if we go down to the next page, under the 2 items that Commissioner Eid had mentioned, what's currently listed as E, but will be D in the final, and under what is currently listed as F, but will be E in the final, change the 3rd to 5th. So we will have 5 rounds of voting. If we cannot reach a consensus after 5 rounds of voting, then we move to ranked choice.
Thank you.
I'll second that motion. So essentially, it's the same as the one that we originally got that only has the changes to the House being changed to the Senate and the dates, plus increasing it from 3 rounds of voting to 5 before moving on to ranked choice. Is that right, Commissioner Zatello?
Yes.
Okay. We'll move to discussion. Mr. Fink?
Yeah, I wanted to, there's one part that I think Commissioner Tella missed there, which is there's an extra word in I think we don't have the document in front of us, but I added in the word remaining, which that should probably be removed as part of Commissioner Zatella's motion as well. It's just in, you have to scroll up, Edward.
It's in D. So D,
Yeah.
current D, C, yes. I will amend my motion to include the striking of that word as well. Remove remaining from the current D, which will in the final draft be C.
Right. Just wanted to clarify that.
Okay. Commissioner Lang?
I have a question that's unrelated, but kind of related. Our policy, when we change our policies, does it not require a 3-day before we can vote on it? Any changes made, presented, or is that just on certain ones, not necessarily the voting? Can anybody answer that?
And this was sent to us on Tuesday. So I think we've had the 48 hours.
It's 72 hours, if I'm not mistaken.
I think she's referring to the rules and procedures, Mr. Fink, so if we can take a look at that. I know this is not a part of the rules of procedure. This is a mapping policy. So let's just make sure with regards to that.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. That's what I was wondering, if this falls under our policies or not.
I think this is directed to me. I mean, typically on parliamentarian questions, I defer to MDOS, but I think they have their hand up actually. Someone from MDOS.
MDOS?
So the 3 days refers directly to the rules of procedure. It indicates that these rules may be amended, referring to the rules of procedure, reading directly from section 14.2 with prior notice. The prior notice and the agenda must be submitted at least 3 days prior to the meeting. So that is specific to the rules of procedure.
Okay, thank you.
Also, we got, what we're essentially voting on is now the one that Edward sent out last Thursday, the 13th, with the only additional change being changing it from 3 rounds to 5. So I think we were noticed of this accurately for what we're voting on at the moment for the motion that's on the table. Okay, is there any more discussion on the motion? Commissioner Satella?
So Commissioner Eid, I could be incorrect about this, but I believe I need a second on that amendment.
I seconded it.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, on your amendment. Okay.
On the
yeah.
amendment, yeah.
Remove the word.
I'll
Yeah.
second it.
Okay. So we have an amendment that's on the floor to remove the word removed from the original motion. Once we vote on that, we can return to the original motion. Department of State.
It is to remove the word remaining. My
Remaining.
apologies. I just want the record to be.
Oh no, that is very important. Thank you so much for that correction. Okay, is there any more discussion on the amendments? Commissioner Callahan?
Just could someone explain what they are again? I'm confused. Are we amending and approving? Are we amending and then approving? What are we voting on? What's on the table?
Right. Right now, Commissioner Zatella made a motion, but she is amending that motion to just remove that word that is highlighted. So we got to vote on that. And then once that happens, we will then return to the original motion, which is what's like actually on the table. Does that make sense? And what's actually on the table is the document minus what Mr. Fink presented. So that would not be in it. And also changing it from 3 rounds of voting to 5.
No, it makes no sense to remove the word remaining unless you also remove the paragraph that eliminates a map. So are we voting on those two things? Because those two changes are together. So are we voting on removing the remove a map after round 1 and the word remaining? Because just removing remaining makes no sense.
Department of State.
So what you're voting on now is the ability to amend the main motion. And you're amending the main motion to include removing the word remaining from that subsection. So you are voting on whether that main motion can have that inclusion. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay, so the first vote will be whether or not you can amend the main motion to have the inclusion of the removal of remaining from subsection as it's currently listed D, as in David.
Okay, thank you so much for that explanation. All right, all those in favor of the amendments, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Any opposed? Please raise your hand and say nay. Okay, that is adopted. We will now go back to the original as amended. And Department of State, can we restate what that original motion was now?
Absolutely. So now you are voting on whether or not to adopt the 2024 procedure for the selection of a Senate map as presented with the removal of the proposed changes in step 2, subsection C, D, and E related to the removing of maps receiving 1 or less votes each round, along with the inclusion of language in step 2, subsection F, to change it to 5 rounds of majority voting. Are there any questions? I'm happy to state that again.
Commissioner Satella?
Yeah, it would be E and F. They both reference third. So both E and F would have third changed to 5th. So it's 2 sections. Just want to make that clear.
Thank you for that.
Okay, is there any more debate on that, what we're actually voting on? I just want to make sure everyone's clear, everyone has an understanding. All right. We will now move to vote. All those in favor of the motion to adopt these Senate rules for selection, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
The ayes have it, and the rules are adopted. Thank you, commissioners, for that discussion, and thank you, Department of State, for helping me keep it organized. It gets a little hard when we have smaller amendments like that, but we got through it, so that is good. Next on the agenda is item new business 6B, Senate deliberations meeting schedule.
Mr. Chairman, sorry, I just have my hand up. Yeah, so I know the commission's adopted the procedure, which again, as adopted, other than that change from 3 to 5 is substantively the same as the House procedure, which we did do an overview of before. I know we're short on time today. The next steps in the process that I didn't discuss in my presentation, I alluded to them, but I didn't discuss them, were the ranked choice voting process and the random selection process. Given the short time frame that we have, I can go over that process at the beginning of Monday's meeting, or after public comment, before you actually go into deliberation, if you'd like. Again, given the tight time constraint that we have here. But I would encourage commissioners to read through that in advance of the meeting on Monday. And I'm happy to give a brief overview of that right now, if commissioners would like that.
There are no changes.
Oh, sorry, Director Woods.
I'm just saying I can modify my report, but I think we probably want to get this on the record for the public.
Okay.
So everyone knows what's happening.
Sure. So then I will go ahead and give an overview of this. I'm not going to read this verbatim, but the policy is as it's presented here on the screen. If the commission, through its 5 rounds of voting, does not achieve a constitutional majority and select a map through that process, then we will move into the ranked choice voting process. And the procedure for that is as laid out here. The secretary will call on each commissioner in alphabetical order. Each commissioner will then audibly indicate which draft proposed map they would like to submit for the ranked choice vote. Each commissioner may submit 1 draft proposed map. More than 1 commissioner may submit the same draft proposed plan. Again, we had, like we said, discussed this during the House procedure. It's still the same here. So if you have a single map that more than 1 commissioner wants to submit as their submission for the ranked choice voting process, they can do so. And the secretary will record which commissioner has submitted which draft proposed map and the commissioner's corresponding party affiliation, because that plays into the determination as to which map gets selected through the ranked choice voting process. So after that process, after the map submissions have been made and selections have been made by the various commissioners, the secretary, MDOS, will create a form, a Microsoft form, live during the public session while screen sharing, so that everybody can see how the process is working, containing all of the names of the draft proposed maps submitted pursuant to the previous step. And the commissioners will then rank in order of preference, the most preferred to the least preferred, among the options that were submitted. Once that form has been created, this is just getting into some of the nitty-gritty details, but the secretary's office, the MDOS, will send an email to each commissioner containing a link to the form. and the link will not be distributed publicly to make sure that the voting process itself is secure and that only commissioners are participating in that. Each commissioner will have 10 minutes to complete the form and submit their preferred map rankings. If for some reason a commissioner is unable to access the form due to internet connection issues or any technical issues, the commissioner will convey their preferred rankings to the secretary verbally and publicly for the secretary to record and include in the to include the votes in the ranked choice voting calculation. So after the 10 minutes have been completed, the ranked choice form has expired, and each commissioner present at the meeting has voted. The secretary will tally the votes. The secretary will read each commissioner's ranked votes so that those votes become a matter of public record. Those will be read aloud for each commissioner present to audibly confirm their vote on the record, one at a time in alphabetical order. In terms of how the votes are calculated, each plan will be assigned. Oh, you scrolled down a little too far there, Edward. Each plan will be assigned a point value inverse to its ranking among the number of choices. This comes directly from the constitutional language, giving the lowest ranked plan 1 point and the highest ranked plan a point value equal to the number of plans submitted. So if there were 5 plans submitted for ranked choice voting, the highest ranked plan gets 5 points. The lowest ranked plan gets 1 point. The commission then shall adopt the plan receiving the highest total points. That is, and this is, as I alluded to before, about why it's relevant which commissioner submit or the party affiliation of the commissioner submitting the maps for this process. The commission adopts the plan receiving the highest total points that is also ranked among the top half of plans by at least 2 commissioners not affiliated with the party of the commissioner submitting the plan, or in the case of a plan submitted by a non-affiliated commissioner, that it's ranked among the top half of plans by at least 2 commissioners affiliated with a major party. So in that circumstance, if an unaffiliated commissioner had submitted the plan, you'd need to have at least either 2 Democrats or 2 Republicans, or at least 1 of each, that also had the plan ranked in the top half of their selections. The secretary will announce the results of the ranked choice vote and share an Excel spreadsheet publicly via Zoom to display the total point value achieved by each plan. The results will also be publicly posted on the commission's website as part of the public record. If we have 2 plans through this process that are tied for the highest point total and also meet the requirement that at least at least 2 members of the commission who are not affiliated with the submitting commissioner, it's in the top half of their selections. As long as we've met those requirements, then there'll be a random selection using an independent accounting firm to do a random draw of the 2 highest of the tied selections. If through that process, we do not, sorry, can you scroll up a little bit? Well, I guess you're right there. So if no plan meets the requirements of this ranked choice through the ranked choice voting process, and we don't select a map through that process, then MDOS will use an independent accounting firm to randomly select the final remedial state Senate plan from among all of the submitted plans that had been submitted during the ranked choice voting process. So if you go back a step to where the ranked choice voting process begins, again, not the initial voting round where you're trying to achieve the constitutional majority, the majority voting process, but in the ranked choice voting selection, any map that's submitted by a commissioner for that process is then included in the random draw, should the random draw become necessary if the commission does not achieve a map through ranked choice voting. Now, I realize that this can sound a little bit confusing, but we want to make sure it's all out there for the public record. And again, if there are follow-up questions, we can discuss it today and also can have a continued discussion on Monday if necessary. But the commission back in 2021 had considered different options for a determination as to how you account for maps, plans that are submitted by more than one commissioner for the ranked choice voting process. Because as I indicated, more than one commissioner can submit the same plan. The procedure that was adopted by the commission in 2021, that is the procedure that's in place, is as follows. If a single plan is submitted for ranked choice voting by more than one commissioner, the secretary will note that for the record that a particular plan, Plan A, for example, say was submitted by 2 commissioners, 1 Republican, 1 Democrat. Okay, that'll be noted for the record. When you actually go into the ranked choice voting process, that map, Plan A, will only appear once as a single line item, a single option in the ranked choice voting ballot. So even though it was submitted twice, it will only appear once for people to vote on. But again, the record will be noted that that particular map was submitted by both a Republican and a Democrat. So when you move into the voting process, you're determining whether you have 2 members of the opposite party or either unaffiliated or from the opposite party, you factor in both the fact that this was both a Republican and Democratic submission. But again, in the ranked choice voting process, that Plan A, even though it was submitted twice, will only appear once. Again, this is from the process that was adopted by the commission back in December of 2021 before voting on all of the initial maps. If we do not select a map through the ranked choice voting process and we go to the random selection, then, again, under the plan that had been the procedure that was already adopted by the commission, any plans that were submitted by if a single plan was submitted by more than one commissioner, so going back to my example of Plan A gets submitted by both a Republican and a Democrat, then that Plan A will then appear twice in the hat, so to speak, that the random draw will occur from. So although it only appears once as an option in the ranked choice voting process, it will appear in that example twice in the random selection process, should that process become necessary. I realize this is kind of a complicated sounding process. When you actually sort of drill down into it, I don't think that it's that difficult to ultimately understand. And again, we wanted to just put it all out there for the public and for commissioners so that they understand that, again, this process, like I said, was adopted, that I just described was adopted by the commission back in 21 after considering a couple of different options for how to do that. So that's the process. I'm happy to answer any questions now, or if you had some time to think about it and read through it, if you have additional questions, or either additional questions that any you may have now or anything on Monday, I'm happy to address it then.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Fink.
You're welcome. Hopefully I didn't put anybody to sleep through that process. Everybody, at least who's on screen, still appears to be awake. So
I think you did a great job describing what's in the process so that everybody, including the public, is aware. And hopefully it doesn't get this far. We'll get a constitutional majority on one of them, and that'll be it. All right. Okay. Well, next on the agenda is new business 6B, Senate deliberations meeting schedule. There is no objection. I'll ask Executive Director Woods to facilitate this item. Is there any objection, commissioners? Seeing none, please proceed, Mr. Woods.
Right, is everybody able to see my screen?
We can.
Perfect. Thank you. The commission has voted with regards to the schedule for the Senate deliberations to meet on Monday, June 24th from 10 to 1, and also 4 to 7, Tuesday 10 to 5 with lunch from 1 to 2, and then Wednesday, June 26th from 10 to 1. What's being proposed or discussed is looking at doing a hybrid schedule where the commission would meet Monday from 10 to 5, Tuesday 10 to 5, and Wednesday 10 to 5 with lunch from 1 to 2. Hybrid schedule means that you can participate. If you're not able to come in person, you would participate remote, like we mostly do, like we're currently doing now. What's before the commission is, do you want to look at remote only? We have the Attorney General's office and remote in Lansing, and we have the Detroit Marriott Southfield, which would also be remote as well. So what's before the commission is to identify how it wants to meet next week with regards to the meeting schedule. I did share some information via email. I did receive an email today during our meeting, and for full transparency, the Detroit Marriott Southfield will cost $100 a day with the third day free, just so everyone is aware of that. $100 a day with the third day free, and with that $100, there's a service charge that will be added to that as well. Obviously, we don't pay taxes. So I just want to make sure that comes out to $122 for Monday, $122 for Tuesday, and then Wednesday it would be free if we go the full 3 days. If there's any questions, I can take them at this time.
Commissioner Lang.
I would like to motion that we do in person remote only. And if I can get a second, I'll speak as to why I think that that's the best thing that we do.
I'll second that.
Thank you. The reason why I'm recommending that, I had reached out to Executive Director Woods after our town halls. And while we've done our constitutional duty and, we've offered public comment, our public comment period ends the 21st. I just think we need to be aware of the financials that we've spent. Our town halls, we spent $13,345 to get 9 comments from the actual town hall itself. That doesn't include online comments. When we're talking about attending hybrid, I'm worried about additional costs for AV, travel for commissioners. Not all of the commissioners live close to those areas. And I think what if there's only 1 or 2 commissioners that would even want to attend in person? So I think everything that needs to be done, the deliberations, while I have not attended in person, I've seen everybody attend in person, and most of you have your computers out in front of you and are staring at your computers anyways, when we're doing the mapping and stuff. So I think in order to be conscious of the taxpayer money that we're spending, we should do virtual. So that's my reasoning. Thank you.
Commissioner Curry.
You're on mute, Commissioner Curry.
Okay, I got it. I just want to say that the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission, the application, when they hired us, they already made stipulations. They knew that they were going to be out of money for this, that, and the other. And one of the stipulations is that we meet in public. And so if we have to meet in public, they knew they had to pay the bill. So I don't think we should use that as an excuse not to meet.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Curry. I had asked Edward to take a look into this on if it would be possible to meet in person for a few reasons. I do think doing this in person would be a lot better. And I think everybody who is able to attend should attend. I hope we have all 13 people there. Everyone's invited, of course, but I think the financial aspects I think are vastly overblown. We still spend significantly less money than every other redistricting commission across the country, even with this remedial process. So I don't really think that's a good reason to decide whether to be in person or in public. I think we all need to be there to be there with the people. We're a public body and all public bodies meet in person. But more importantly than that, my rationale is what is more likely for us to get a constitutional majority. So I don't want to go to ranked choice. I don't want to go to a random drawing. I want to, get a constitutional majority and call it a day. And I think it's more likely that we get that if we're there in person. So that's why I think we should be in person. And that's my opinion. Commissioner Lang?
I have a follow-up on that. I'm kind of curious on your thought process on why you think being in person would get us a constitutional majority as opposed to being online or virtual. I mean, all discussions happen in front of the public. So I'm kind of curious what your thinking is on that.
Well, I agree. All discussions certainly do happen over Zoom while we're at it. But there is a real added benefit to being in person. There's more camaraderie. You can see body language better. You can see everybody's face. I mean, I'm looking right now and I can't see everyone's face on the Zoom. I can't see your face, Commissioner Lang, and that's your choice. That's okay. But when we're in person, you can see body language. You can see people's visceral reactions to different things. And I kind of think there's a reason why public bodies meet in public. So it's not really so much of a deliberations reason. It's more so a humanistic reason of being there in person. I do think we're more likely to get the majority that way and go from there. I could be wrong.
Point of clarification too, just for the public record. My camera's broke and has been broke, so it's not my choice. Just so we're clear. Thank you.
Gotcha. And I wasn't trying to single you out. I'm just saying there are a lot of people here whose, faces I don't see. And, that's everyone's choice. That's all right. I have my camera off sometimes too. But I do think there is an advantage to being in person. Is there any other debate? The motion before us is to meet virtually. Is that correct, Commissioner Lang?
That is correct.
Okay. So we have a motion by Commissioner Lang, seconded by, I think it was Commissioner Zatello. Is that right, Department of State?
That is correct.
That is correct.
Okay, we will move to vote. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 All those opposed, please raise your hand and say nay.
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 All right, we might need a roll call for this one.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. A yes vote to the motion before you means that you are in favor of the motion, and a no vote means that you are not in favor of the motion. I gotta get my mouse over there. Hang on, I'm sorry. Commissioner Andrade?
No.
Commissioner Callahan?
No.
Commissioner Curry?
No.
Commissioner Eid?
No.
Commissioner Kellum?
No.
Commissioner Lang?
Yep. Yes.
Commissioner Lett? is out, I'm sorry. Commissioner Muldoon,
No.
Commissioner Orton,
No.
Commissioner Zatella.
Uh,
I'm sorry.
Sorry, did you catch that? Yes.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Villette.
No.
Commissioner Wagner,
Yes.
Commissioner Weiss, sorry, my mouse is acting up, I'm sorry. Commissioner
Yes.
Weiss,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, with 4 yes and 8 no, the motion does not carry.
All right, thank you, Department of State.
You're welcome.
So the other options were either in Lansing or in Southfield. Is that correct, Mr. Woods?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, is there any preference for commissioners on, which one of those would be better? It doesn't matter much to me, but if more people would come to a certain place, we might want to take that into consideration. Commissioner Zatella and then
Well-
Commissioner Muldoon.
Because we're supposed to be addressing Detroit, it seems like Southfield would be a better choice because that's closer to people in Detroit if they want to attend the in-person hearing.
Commissioner Muldoon.
Yeah, I would say Southfield would be a little easier for me, and I'm sure a couple other commissioners live in that area. No, there's a few that don't. So I mean, I'd propose we do Southfield. And then the remote if needed.
Okay, is there a second to that, commissioners?
Second that.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to be meeting in Southfield next week. Is there any-
Commissioner Ede, if I may, just so we
Yes.
know with the mapping procedures, there was a time on there. And so I just want to make sure that everyone understands that if the commissioner does go with this proposal, it is from 10 to 5, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Is what what the commission voted on as the mapping procedures, so that will be understood that needs to be adjusted.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. All right, everyone got that? Everyone have an understanding of the motion and the second, Department of State?
I just want to let the commission know that I will be unable to be there in person on Tuesday, but Ms. Reinhardt has indicated that she is able to be there in person to assist with coordination of in-person logistics. I will be able to attend virtually and facilitate the deliberations, though. I just want to let you.
All right, thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please raise your hand and say nay.
Nay. Nay.
All right, the ayes have it and the motion is adopted. Thank you, commissioners. Mr. Woods.
Yeah, in light of the time, Commissioner Ede, if you want, we can table all these other items till Monday. There's nothing pertinent. I have enough to execute what needs to be done in Southfield.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to table new business items C and D, as well as agenda item 7, all of the approval of the minutes to Monday.
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
Thank you, commissioners. We have a motion by Commissioner Weiss, seconded by Commissioner Muldoon to table the remainder items of new business 6 and the approval of the minutes 7 to the meeting on Monday. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, please raise your hand and say nay.
Nay.
The ayes have it, and those items are tabled. Is there an executive director's report today, Mr. Woods?
We can table that, all of that too. I know we're over, so I just want to respect our
Okay.
interpreters and our closed caption.
Any MDOS updates?
Once again, we can just wrap the meeting. We don't have it.
All right.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Motion adjourned by Commissioner Lang, seconded by Commissioner Orton. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. We are adjourned at 2:05 p.m. See everyone.